Greetings, everyone. No matter what, this is going to be the last day to work on this, the final page, the last page of this sketchbook. And so what we're going to do is we're basically going to tattoo this page with graffiti or nonsense or scribbles. And it's going to be whatever falls out of my head is just going to fall onto the page. So, because we're starting off with a tattoo, we are very quickly just going to put in an anchor. It's not going to be a perfect anchor, but it's going to be an anchor. So if everyone's having a wonderful day, I hope that we find you happy with some version of joy. I think that's necessary. We can't be healthy all the time, but you can be well, or at least well enough. I think that's important. Because you may not be at that capacity of some sort that would have you perfectly aligned to run against superb athletes in the Olympics. Some of us may never be at that level. Some of us may not even be able to run, who knows? So we're in the home stretch, folks, as far as how this sketchbook will be finished. Now, if you had a chance to look at some of the older videos, I mean, this is a pretty new channel. You may have noticed that I was involved in Inktober. Well, that is a drawing a day thing. You have a daily prompt. And I did that one kind of like this, but 10 minutes a day roughly to do one drawing. So we are doing much better time-wise than what it took to do that. But I encourage you to go back and get a look at that just for fun to see what a partial filling of a page would look like. So let's do another classic tattoo type thing. And it won't be perfect. The concept of tattoos is pretty neat. So I think if you have something that you want to keep near you as a reminder, most tattoos are permanent. you can get temporary tattoos, and then there are certain traditions that it's like tattooing, but it's not necessarily tattoos. So I've seen some beautiful henna work, and that requires kind of like staining basically, and I've seen it on people's hands. It's actually quite remarkable. So now I'm going to do a different version of some barbed wire. So it won't be exactly like barbed wire, but it'll be kind of. You don't really see tattoos like that so often. I think Blake Shelton got something like that, or no, I think he got like a tribal tattoo or something at one point, something very 90s. So some of that stuff goes out of fashion. I think maybe even Pamela Anderson might have got a barbed wire tattoo. I'm not really sure right off. There you go for that. Up here, we are going to put in a very quick, strange bodied creature. And we're going to do another one. I know people that don't really enjoy having spiders around. I've never really been freaked out by them, much like ants. Ants are creatures that work together, whereas spiders are not really into that. If you had a large group of spiders working together the way that ants do, yeah, I think that would be pretty scary. Some of this stuff is kind of interesting. Let's take a little zoom. Just like that. fun. Let's change that into something else all of a sudden. I was going to draw another creature, but instead, let's turn that into a light bulb. We've surrounded ourselves with light that I think doesn't really benefit us. They're cheaper to run. But one of the problems with modern day light bulbs is they kind of like disrupt. And I'm not making that up. They're not always that great. So they kind of emit different energies. Sort of like there's a certain sound that you get from fluorescent bulbs, for example, and you don't really get to see lots of those anymore. But I think overall the best light bulbs were kind of the first in a way. All of a sudden I want to draw a different bug here after drawing that light bulb. So incandescent bulbs, those are the ones that, if you still have some, they're actually kind of a little bit better for you. But we just can't really recycle them nicely, so you don't really see them around anymore. So folks, you may or may not know this, but your opportunity now to go out in Canada and purchase some stamps and mail some letters. This is so it seems like it's back on. So if you have that opportunity to do so, I encourage you to do so. Write a letter, do some artwork, and send it to somebody. Because how cool is that? All right, well, that was supposed to be a lightning bug, by the way, but kind of silly, honestly enough. But yes, that's right, they have a filament in them that looks like a goal post. It's been a while since I've really looked at a light bulb like that. So next, let us think of a hammer. And of course, there's lots of different types of hammers. I think amongst the most common be something that you'd see carpenters use. They'd have a claw on one end that helps to draw nails or pry boards, but we'd most often use them for prying nails. So the holidays are almost upon us. Oh, and by the way, that claw is a little bit off. I mean, that should be more relatable to a 45 than a 90 degree, which is kind of a shame. But you know what? I can kind of fix that with a different type of hammer here, let's say. So this one, let's say it's more of a hammer that a cobbler might use, a shoemaker. Yeah. Iron workers might use one similar, more of a spike than claw. Yes, so hammer. All right, let's also maybe add some more fun little things. So we have this creature. Why not up here where we have different types of machines? We have an airship and a sea ship. Why not a spaceship? Have any of you ever seen something that you couldn't identify in the sky? Kind of makes you think that there might still be people on this planet who've had no real contact with the outside world, and that it's possible that different countries are aware of this, but they would go out of their way to not interfere with them so people wouldn't fly over them. Like they would have a no-fly zone, let's say. Can you imagine a modern day society being that concerned? Because there was a point in time where that really wasn't built into the early explorers. They were under the impression that when they found or discovered a place that they were the first ones there, kind of, but it's outrageous to think that somebody would just show up where people are already living and then, claim it for a land somewhere else. Most of those early cultures didn't really consider that people could own something like, the earth. And to this day, other than the way that we're willing to defend it, people can't really own the earth. So claiming something like that is a pretty wild thing. And it's not really built into some cultures to think that you could make claims like that. It's kind of outrageous. Inside here, let's have a little buddy. I think I did something that was like an afternoon in the park where I had an alien in a craft that was beaming up a cow. That was sometime last month. Now there is another ship, an airship. Well, let's call it I think I would have seen it on G.I. Joe. And it was supposed to be basically a missile that you would fly with. I think the wings would rotate. So G.I. Joe would have one. I think the X-Men had a version of it as well. I think it's based on a real aircraft, but so it would be the Blackbird. And in one version, the wings, ooh, it wouldn't look like that. These wings could tilt and use sort of like thrust vectoring, like Harrier jets, which are British jets, to for vertical takeoff. But this sort of design or that sort of shape, there were a few that had something like this. So it was the Averill Arrow, which was a Canadian-made jet. It was exceptionally fast. If the nose was angled down just a little bit like that, that was the Concorde. And it's weird to think about the Concorde. I guess they were notoriously difficult to fly or land, I guess. And a couple of incidences. I don't know if it was Air France. I'd have to look that up. But yes, they could go pretty fast. All right. We're filling in lots of things still. I'm going to put a nail there, one here. We're going to make a nail that looked like it started going straight, but oh no, it bent. Oh, what a nuisance. I'm going to create a little shadow. And one that was successful, one that was sort of successful that created a little bit more of an indentation because the person hit it too hard with a hammer. Right. Next, oh, we're going to do this a fun way. We're going right upside down. Now, got a cool Smurf, but just seeing the way one of those nails was bent kind of reminded me that mushrooms look cool. So let's draw a Smurf house, although I don't really remember how they look. I'm going to kind of guess. That was a weird show. The Smurfs. The Skromfs. Smurfs were I think they were European. I don't remember if they were, if it was like a show that came from France or Germany, to be honest with you. don't know what the origin of that was, but I feel like they were pretty original. And I would have talked about them a little bit before when I first found that little figurine, that they were magical. And that there was somebody that was out to get them all the time. Someone by the name of Gargamel, who was a wizard, and somehow, much like Wile E. Coyote, would go out of his way to hunt them down, but seemed to have enough skill to, I don't know, perhaps not have been so obsessed with something. Like somehow Wile E. Coyote had like an account with Acme, or somehow could create fraud to get stuff through Acme. Really unusual though. Just order lunch. What would make a roadrunner good food? I can't imagine that strange bony animal would be worth all that effort. Anyway, that's funny to me. Why would you bother? I don't think I've seen a Smurf house in quite some time. I think I saw somebody that had maybe it was like, yeah, I don't know. When's the last time I saw one of the Smurfs' houses? Now, I think there was only supposed to be like 101 or something like that. There was a limited amount of Smurfs that could be around, and it wasn't until after the creation of Smurfette that you found out that there were like cousins or something too, and so let me, for fun, see if I can draw a little Smurf. I don't always do this with references, but I'm going to have one. So let's see. It's going to be pretty small. Now, something that's unusual about the Smurfs and figures like this, I think a lot of us were under the impression that if they lived in mushrooms and all that kind of stuff, that they were pretty small. But I would think a creature like this, being that they were apparently 3 apples tall, that's not really small. 3 apples, depending on the size of the apples. Yeah, I don't really know if I would say that they were small creatures. I think my favorite Smurf was one called Jokey. So that's what I'm going to do here. He'd, I assume for hundreds of years, would go to the other Smurfs, and he would say to them, "Oh yes, I have a surprise for you." And each and every time, because, you know, Smurfs are generally trusting of each other, yeah, they'd open a gift from Jokey the Smurf. I wouldn't trust that guy. They have little bunny rabbit tails too, I think. Oh yeah, there you go. They have bunny rabbit tails that stick out of their pants. That's funny. Anyway, so little Smurf got drawn. Good old buddy Jokey. I am going to drop in a little color on that Smurf. Just a little bit. And I think, therefore, I am almost done of that. The ribbon on the gifts were generally red. The roof was often red. Now, they didn't always get along great with human beings, but we were introduced in a other series of sorts where Handy Smurf befriended a couple of humans. It was Johann and Pee-wee. And from what I remember, Handy had built an android Smurf. Clockwork or something like that. Now, I think one of the funny things about the Smurfs, which I don't think I mentioned, was that they have a unique kind of language where they would accessorize their phrasing with the word Smurf. So you could say, instead of I would like a drink of water, you could say, I would like a drink of Smurf in some cases, but sometimes you would like a Smurf of water. I haven't seen that show in such a long time. I don't think it's in any kind of syndication, and I don't know if it's on any streaming services, so. Just funny stuff from your childhood, right? Well, from my childhood. I don't know if it was necessary for me to make the shape of the body of that mushroom look like that. And I don't remember if they had grass around them because of their size. Number one, these would be huge mushrooms. if they're 3 apples tall. So you'd think their houses would be the size of, let's say, a household stove. If they're 3 apples tall. And if an apple is the size of your fist. So there you go. I don't know. So anyway, got a Smurf there, folks. While we're there, we'll just add a little bit of that grass there around Jokey. And we'll have him say something like, now, a lot of the Smurfs had names that kind of would correspond with their greatest trait. So moments ago I talked about Handy and Jokey. There was like unnecessary named Smurfs as well. So there was like Hefty, who was able to lift, so heft, I suppose. There was Vanity, which seems like, well, it's a trait, I guess. But Smurfette, because of the uniqueness of their language, I don't really know what that name would represent other than the et part, which would be a feminized version of Smurf. That would be my guess anyway. So that one's funny. Okay. Little Smurf. And I don't recall if this was just all white. But I think that the shape of it was more, yeah, I don't know, like pear-shaped maybe. Haven't seen it in 30 years maybe or more. So let's try something else over here. I'm going to doodle a scrunched up face from childhood again. A character that was stern. This is not going to go where I need it to go. The mouth is already off, I can tell. But I always had this sort of like, oh yeah, this was serious business. But I remember squeezing the head of this toy because it was the only soft part on its body. And I don't know why I started to draw it like that. This thing had a Dora the Explorer haircut. Oh yeah, no, this is nothing like the character. So my quick and ugly attempt here was to draw the head of He-Man. And it was a hard plastic toy, except for the head. And they're like immensely grotesque, kind of super muscular bodies. This one had like a chest plate or something like that. I think it had like a stylized H. Almost like it was Hercules. But H for He-Man? Maybe. I think there was a revamp done a few years ago that Kevin Smith, famous director, famous mostly for indie films, I think he was somehow involved in that. Tilt the hand a little bit. And from what I remember, the sword that this guy had, what did it look like? Yeah. Something like this. I think it had like a harp kind of thing happening. Maybe not like that. But similar. And Skeletor had access to the other side of it, only also had like a sorcerer's staff, like a long wand. Anyway, I think He-Man's sword looked a little like this. Something like that. And it was always about, the power of Grayskull. Oh, and I didn't have room. So I'm going to draw something just off to one side. Let's go way over here. The best part of He-Man's outfit, of course, was some sort of fuzzy, furry underwear. With his cool muscular legs. And from what I remember, the way the body fit together, I think it had like also fuzzy boots, much like Conan the Barbarian or something like that. Anyway, but yeah, fuzzy boots, because what a cool dude. But yes, it's the fuzzy pants, the super duper abs. Radical obliques, the serratus anterior. I don't think. Anyway, so these things were all held together by like hook and elastics. So on the inside, if you ever tore one apart, there would be a ball socket joint here, and there would be like, I believe, much like What were some of the other figures? So like G.I. Joes and stuff like that. But anyway, so they'd have an elastic band that would kind of keep them together in here, and then through the body, which would also be sort of a ball socket joint inside the fuzzy underwear. It would have pectoral major and minor. It would have like wicked deltoids and all that cool stuff. But yes, it was sort of an unnecessarily He-Man dude. But I can't remember if he had like... No, the arms didn't move. So they just moved here in a circular kind of way. And they were always in like a... I think he had... Ooh. Yeah, the shorter arms. And then like one main grippy hand, and then another I guess you could say hand of accent. I don't know what you'd call this sort of thing, but it's not meant for holding anything from what I remember. So yeah, it'd be the grip hand, and there'd be some sort of accent hand, and then his big ridiculous head that was squishy. Might have been a little bit more there. Bigger, cooler, fuzzy underwear. Probably longer legs. I don't remember. I think he had a buddy that was man-at-arms. You know, that's funny. I did a drawing not that long ago with something I set it aside. I totally forgot. So this is a He-Man action figure, and I totally forgot that I had that thing around. So I guess they do have gauntlets. This one has like weird boots, the fuzzy underwear. I wasn't too far off. It's weird that I was trying to draw this from memory. That's ridiculous. Anyway, it's really funny. Okay, so yeah, that other thing, that's a skunk He-Man action figure called Stinkor. And yeah, like I said, well, there you go. There's the one grippy hand, and then there's like this accent hand of something or other, and squishy head. That's funny. Try to draw something from memory, and that thing is just sitting off to one side of my desk. I could have used that. That is hilarious. Anyway, so there you go. That's what he looks like. Kind of. I don't have a He-Man action figure around here anywhere. Totally didn't think about there being a belt on this guy. It's funny how the mind works when you think that you're trying to figure something out. So there's no need in really dragging all of this out that much more. I think that's full enough for what I'd expect that to be. But I think just for fun, we're going to say it is now complete. We'll do more focused things here in upcoming videos. But this is just to finish off this sketchbook. December 17th, 2024. Okay, folks. And that's it. There's no need in going any further with more silliness type stuff. Thanks for hanging out with me. I think this was just kind of a fun little thing to do. And yeah, no, like I said, we'll have more complete things in the upcoming videos. So I hope everyone has a wonderful day, and we'll see you again at some point in the near future.